listening to The Motherhood Experience, a podcast where you are part of the conversation with moms, for moms, and by moms. Let's jump into this episode with me, your host, Val Kleppen. Hello and welcome back to the Motherhood Experience podcast. I'm your host, Val, and I'm thrilled to have joining me today, Hetal Vasavada. You may have seen her, you may have heard of her before. If you are a fan of Master Chef, she will be very familiar to you. Not only that, but we had the most fun conversation. I could have talked to her for a long time. In this episode, we talk about her motherhood journey. We talk about her love for the kitchen, how it came to be, how she continues it today. And we talk about a very special partnership. She has partnered with Challenge Butter, Cookies for Kids' Cancer. We're going to have details about this in the show notes. Essentially, I'll give you the brief rundown now. You bake cookies, take pictures of them, and I'll read directly from the card here. For every cookie photo posted between now and December 31st, Challenge will donate $1 to Cookies for Kids Cancer. And there are, you can tag at Challenge Butter and Cookies, the number 4 kids, Cookies for Kids, and then hashtag Challenge for a Cure. And they even provide this recipe to make these special snowflake cookies. Hetal said that they are not hard to make. I haven't tried it yet, but the kids and I are going to absolutely as soon as I hit stop on this. We're going to do this, and I hope that you will join us in participating as well. A big thank you to Challenge Butter, and an especially big thank you to Hetal for being an amazing guest. I'm so excited for you to hear her episode, which will begin right now. Hetal, I was so pleased to have you on the Motherhood Experience podcast. Thank you for being a guest. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I haven't had my coffee yet, but
we're going to power through
this.
It's
Friday. Exactly. It's a Friday, so I'm feeling good.
Oh, man. So I have every guest start by sharing the age and stage of their kids and where they are in motherhood. Why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and share that with us?
Yeah. So I have an 8-year-old daughter who is hitting her preteens deep. And we are now in the era of teaching her how to filter, because it's cute when they're little and don't have a filter, but It's not cute. It's not cute anymore. So teaching her how to filter her intrusive and impulsive thoughts and the rules of girlhood. You don't leave anyone behind at the playground. You move as a group. You go to the bathroom as a group. How do you talk to someone when they try on new clothes at the store? Which, I'm learning very quickly that I forgot that these things are all learned and I need to have patience with her.
Yes. It is a weird transition stage, though, isn't it? When you suddenly find yourself in it. At least for me, I don't realize I'm going through it. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I need to maybe take a step back and chill out a minute.
Right?
I didn't go into that knowing it.
Exactly. It hit me. I went shopping recently, and I don't really go shopping in stores that often, to be honest. And I needed to buy a new outfit. So she bullied her way into my dressing room, as all kids typically do. And I'm trying on the clothes, and she's like, Mom, your belly looks real soft. Or, it's not coming from a place of malice. She's just stating facts.
Sure.
But in my head, I'm like, texting my husband, like, come get your daughter.
Yeah, as someone who doesn't generally love shopping, let alone for clothes too. Like my sister picked this out for me. I wasn't shopping. I was shopping for like trinkets or something, and she walked up holding this, and I was like, "Yeah, that's cute." She's like, "No, I want you to try it." It's like, "Oh, well, thank you," because in my 40s, I still need help getting dressed.
Yeah. And then it dawned on me that she doesn't know what you're supposed to do. And I'm like, okay, we're going to play pretend. I'm going to try an outfit, and you're going to say, how do you feel in that? You know what? I think this color might look good. Let me get you another size. Do you think you need a size down or size up? There are different ways to talk to, because I don't want her going shopping with her friends and then she's like, you know,
Yeah.
like I want her to be nice. I want like it to be a good experience. And I've learned that I forgot that like you need to learn this, like how to, you know, be a girl sometimes, or like not even just be a girl, just be a good person.
Yeah.
Like it's all taught because they're watching, you know, Descendants and Disney and whatever it may be. Even if I don't have it on in my own house, she catches it at school, aftercare, whatever it may be, and they pick up these things because you know it's funny to be rude on those shows.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
and
not in my house.
That gives so much weight to the caught not taught phrase, and like there really is. And when you think they're not maybe watching or paying attention, there are definitely things that are still caught for sure.
100%.
Absolutely. So tell me, there will be some who are like, wait a minute, where do I know her from? Tell us all where they would have seen you before.
You might have seen me crying and cooking on MasterChef season 6 with Gordon Ramsay. And beyond that, I've written for Food and Wine, Bon Appetit, New York Times. I recently had a couple recipes in Washington Post. So I've been kind of making my rounds amongst the food media world.
And how did you not only get into the food media world, as you said, but how did your love for the kitchen develop?
I think, so growing up, I grew up in a joint household, meaning that it wasn't just my immediate family living in my house. It was my dad sponsored a lot of his brothers and all of my mom's sisters. My mom has 6 sisters and brother. My dad's got 6 brothers and 2 sisters. It's a big family. And at any given point in my life, a number of them lived with us. So we had like 10 to 15 people living in my house at any moment. So cooking meant all hands on deck, even if you were 3 to like 60 something, all hands are on deck. So I grew up where all the women would gather in the kitchen and we'd, you know, make our dinners together, make our lunches together. And it was like a moment of community. So I enjoyed being in the kitchen. I enjoyed being like, I had my own little mini Indian cookware that my mom had gotten me, and I get to make my little baby rotis and whatnot. But as I got older and I moved away from my family's all in New Jersey, and I moved to California, I started missing a lot of the things that I had back home. So I started cooking more, trying to feel closer to home. And baking didn't start until I was in college, when my organic chemistry professor told me that if you could bake, you would pass lab. So I started baking. I was like, okay, bet, let's do this. So I started from like box cake mixes, and then it slowly turned into like me challenging myself. And then like me growing up, just some background, there is like not very much baking in Indian food culture. Most homes in India. That was going to be
a question of mine, so I'm glad you addressed that. Yeah.
It's not a thing. We don't like, we have a couple cookies here and there, like not like shortbread cookies, but they're typically baked at neighborhood bakeries. You normally wouldn't do them at home. Or you would bake them over an open fire situation. So it's not like my mom taught me how to bake cookies or anything like that growing up. It was slowly cake box mixes and then me learning on my own. And then it turned into a full obsession because I had undiagnosed ADHD and I fully hyperfixated. And this is where it has led me.
I think so many people listening right now just went, me too. More and more, I feel like. So is it the experience? Is it the results? Like, what really drives you to enjoy it continually?
My brain turns off.
Okay.
Because I have to be thinking about what I need to do in that moment, right?
Yeah.
Like if I have to mix something for 3 minutes, I am so scared of over mixing it or like getting distracted that I'm going to undermix or overmix it, that I will be watching the timer. And I'm not thinking about anything else other than I need to make sure I mix this properly. Okay, the next step. And like everything shuts off. Like I'm in the present. I am thinking about what the task at hand. I'm not thinking about the 10,000 things I need to do or the 10,000 things I said in the past, going over conversations in your head and cringing. Like, none of that is occurring. I am in the moment. I am just in a Zen space, and it's my go-to thing for self-care, for, I rage bake. I, sad bake. I procrastinate bake. It's all the baking that it just gives me a sense of peace.
So then how does that translate with parenting too? Because I'm sure your daughter has social activities, extracurricular activities, all of this, and you're running here, running there, and you need that escape of yours. But also, what if she wants to join you and it's not truly an escape, but more like a lesson for her? How do you manage that?
So I have learned to be okay to tell her to get out the kitchen. Where I'm like, I need you to walk away. Like, there have been times where I've baked a cake with no sugar in it because homegirl's like, I need a snack. Can you give me a snack, mommy? Mommy, can I get this? Mommy, can I do that? And I'm just like, I forgot the sugar in this cake. I need you to leave. I need you. I've looked at my husband and I'm like, you need to take her somewhere because I need to do this. And then there are times where I'm like, hey, Laura, do you want to help bake? And I've passed my ADHD down to my child. So she'll be excited for the first 10 seconds. And then the moment her hands get dirty, she's like, I'm out.
A little sensory overload there.
Yep.
Well, that is comforting and encouraging. My love for being in the kitchen started really when I was in the 7th grade, and I took a home ec course, and I was like, oh, not everything you make has to come from a box, because that was kind of how I grew up. Either a restaurant or a box is where our food came from. And when I took that home ec course, it changed the whole course of my life. And I love cooking, baking, being in the kitchen, period. My kids also love it, but I'm not sure that I love us all being in the kitchen together at the same time.
There's that meme where it's like when my stress decides to stress bake with me.
Yeah.
Like, for me, what I've learned is I will make a point to bake something with her during the holidays, especially, or just like anytime. But what I'll do is I'll pre-measure everything. I'll put it all in. I'll measure everything out before I even call her into the kitchen. And then I'll hold her hand as we dump everything in. And because she doesn't like cracking eggs or touching things, it also makes it so that she'll actually maybe stay around longer than she typically would. And then she'll hold, the Tupperware and dump it, and I can kind of guide her hand. So we're not like panicking while she tries to measure the flour out and getting it everywhere.
Right.
Or eating a stick of butter, because it has happened.
Can you blame her? I mean,
yeah. I have found bite marks in my butter that I've left out overnight to be softened. And I'm just like, are you serious? Yeah, that look of horror. That look of horror. I was like,
that's bold. That's bold.
Like, are you okay? Do you have a deficiency? What is going on? Do we need to see a doctor?
Oh my goodness. So what other ways then do you connect with her, spend time with her outside of the kitchen?
Oh, crafting. I love crafting, embroidering, sewing, cross-stitching, all that kind of stuff. So she's very into it as well. I grew up crafting because my mom and dad both have been in creative, like, are very creative people. My mom was a seamstress. She did embroidery work and bead work, and my dad was in jewelry. So growing up, my parents didn't really speak English. They both had, 3rd and 10th grade educations. So it's not like they're going to sit there and do homework with me or be the PTA board member or volunteer to go to field trips, right? They instead spent their time crafting with me. That was like their way of spending quality time with me. So I learned how to do a lot of beadwork, embroidery work, things like that at home, how to sew things. Like, my mom would take us to the discount fabric outlet, let me pick whatever fabric I wanted, and we'd go home and make an outfit. So there was a lot of like making things by hand with them. And now I do that with my daughter. Like for Christmas this year, we made felt ornaments. So she picked a design. She made carrots for our tree.
Oh, that's
felt
adorable.
carrots. And I made a little like, sugar cookie house, and we sat there and embroidered some felt with some beads. And I taught her, the different stitches that she needs to learn, the blanket stitch to close it. And we made like 4 or 5 different ornaments for our tree. And we do that every year. We'll make Cricut projects, and I have a plain t-shirt. Nothing's worse than a plain t-shirt for a kid. She like won't wear it if it's plain. So then I'll pull out the Cricut and okay, let's make your t-shirt pretty. And she like wants to pick the design and weed out all the vinyl and all that stuff. So she likes doing things with her hands, and that's what we end up doing together.
Oh wow. So I would imagine that your days after school, weekends are, I won't say active, but pretty involved, where you guys are probably always doing something. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yeah. So my husband's a bit of a tiger dad. And I am in no doubt that I'm raising a musical theater / drama kid. So we have her in choir and musical theater and improv and dance and, gymnastics and all that stuff. But I will preface this with the fact that my husband and I have very flexible jobs. Me being at home and being able to create my own schedule and having my own business. And then my husband working in tech, but having the ability to leave and drop her off as needed. So she's in something, at least 1 or 2 activities a day. And me and my husband will kind of tag team, take her places and bring her back depending on what's necessary.
Sure.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in the middle of baking a cake with no sugar in it. Need to.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to ask, have there been, as Bob Ross would call it, a happy accident with, like, oh, shoot, I messed this up, but actually it didn't turn out so bad?
100%. I've definitely made like cookie brittles by mistake where like all my cookies decided to merge into one giant cuckoo, I guess.
Yeah.
And it turned into like a brittle, and I was like, this isn't so bad. Or cakes that were too dry, so then I crumbled them and then dried them in the oven and then used them as like ice cream toppings. It worked out perfectly fine. And then I try to find ways to reuse stuff that failed, like either it's turning into a cake pop or an ice cream topping or some sort of brittle. That is my go-to to like not waste food, because let's be real, like eggs and butter and all of that is very expensive, and I don't want to waste it.
Yeah, I hear that. What about inventing recipes and foods where you're like, I wonder if this would be good, and you just go for the gold on it?
That's literally everything I make. Everything's an ADHD fever dream. Where I'm like, what if I mash this with this? And that's exactly what like my entire first cookbook was, milk and cardamom. It was like, what if I made, so gulab jamun is a Indian dessert. They're like almost like donut holes made from milk fat that are deep fried and then soaked in a cardamom, saffron, cinnamon, and rose water syrup. Very, very sweet, very, very delicious. You'll find it at all your Indian restaurants. They usually have it on the menu.
Oh my goodness.
But they're really hard to make, like super duper hard to make. So I was like, what if I made it into one giant cake? And I made a bundt cake that I soaked in the same syrup. So you have, instead of lots of little gulab jamun, it's just one big one that you could slice up and serve. Or I recently had like this idea of, I went to Norway for a chef residency program, and I got introduced to this cheese. Well, technically it's not a cheese, but it's like a byproduct of cheese making. It's called brunost, which is it's called brown cheese also.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And it's just the caramelized whey that comes off of the cheese. So what they do is they'll take the whey after making cheese, cook it down with either goat milk or cow's milk, like cream. And once all of that caramelizes, it sets into this like cheese-like product. And it's got the nuttiness and carameliness without the sweetness. So I was like, what if I put these in chocolate chip cookies?
Oh.
And it worked out. I have a really good Brunhöst chocolate chip cookie recipe. And if you like savory sweet, it is ideal. It sounds wild to put like a cheese product in a cookie, but it works.
It might sound wild to some. But I can see how that would pair nicely. I'm from the Midwest where people put slices of American cheese on top of their apple pie. Like there's weirder things have happened.
You know what? I'm a fan of the cheese and pie situation. I love that.
It is a unique combination that I think when people hear about it for the first time, they're like, there's no way. But when you try it, it's not so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I had it in Alabama, of all places. They had a
no
slice.
Kidding.
They put cheddar on the apple pie, and I'm like, I'm gonna try it. And I was like, oh, I'm into this. I kind of like it.
Yeah, I mean, we have cheese slices and apple slices as a snack all the time. So why not pair it together with a heap of sugar?
Yeah.
It absolutely makes sense. But you mentioned cookbooks. How many do you have out there right now?
So I have 2 cookbooks. The first one's called Milk and Cardamom, which is a collection of Indian American fusion desserts that lean more towards the Indian side than they do American. And then my latest cookbook, Desi Bakes, is another Indian American dessert book, but the desserts lean more American and European, but visually the designs are all inspired by handicrafts, art, textiles from India. So like you would have checkerboard cookies, I make madras print cookies. You have I did like a fruit leather that looks like leheria, which means waves. It's a tie-dye style that's done in India, where it looks like the colors are tie-dyed in a way they look like they're waves.
Oh, wow.
And I did it with like mango and strawberry puree to make like your own homemade fruit leather. But it's more like a cross between like, like the texture of a Welch's gummy.
Mm-hmm.
It's the texture of that with the thinness of like a Trader Joe's fruit leather. It's really good.
Are these complicated recipes that you have? They sound so intricate and lovely. Yes. Where some people might be like, but I can't make that.
You can. Okay. In the book, I have a section called Make It Simple. So under each recipe, I have a Make It Simple section where it's like, hey, if you don't want to pipe all your icing on the cake to make it look like this, here's an easy way to decorate it. Just plop it all in the center of the pie, put all the figs on top, and call it a day. Like, it's okay. I get it. And sometimes you either don't have the time or the energy or even the confidence maybe to, make your cake or pie or cookies to look a certain way. There are easier ways to do it. I have a lemon coriander snickerdoodle recipe where I swirl yellow food coloring into half the dough so that the cookie is swirled half white, half yellow. And I'm like, listen, if you don't want to put the yellow food coloring, you don't have to. It's okay. It's fine. There's easier things you can do. But something I've learned, and especially with like the moms that I've met here, is a lot of the adults I know are afraid of trying things just because they're afraid of making a mistake.
Oh, yes.
I did like a pasta night and I invited a bunch of moms that I had met at my daughter's school over, and I made all these colored pasta doughs, and I was hoping that all the moms would make like a fun designed pasta sheet and then we'd cook it all and, have a dinner. And most of the moms didn't even attempt. They're like, oh, it's not going to look as pretty as yours. It's not going to look that nice. And I'm like, oh, it's okay. It's just pasta. Yeah. Like it's going to taste
still
good.
Eat. Right. But that's so sad.
Yeah. But you see it with kids too. Like I'll teach, I used to do science curriculum programs at schools. And I remember teaching the scientific method. Yeah. I went to school and got my degree in biochemistry and my master's in biomedical sciences. So I used to do like science curriculum programs in Philadelphia at the public school system there. So I'd go into the school and do a project to teach the kids about the scientific method. And a lot of the little kids, after the experiment was done, if their hypothesis wasn't correct, will go back in sheer panic and erase their hypothesis and write down what happened because they don't want to be wrong. And I'm like, no, the point is to be wrong. The point is to mess up. The point is to like be okay with it not being perfect.
Right.
And I'm hoping that like in the book, I talk about that a lot. It's the fact that like imperfections is what reminds you the fact that hands touched something. Like human error is what reminds you that, oh, a human is behind this, not a machine, right?
Mm.
And there's, I think, something really beautiful about that. And my hope is like people aren't too afraid to just try. Just try. It's okay if your like piping's messed up or the color didn't come out right. It's still going to taste good. It'll be okay.
Agreed. Agreed. That's so good and so important. I think I'm glad that we touched on that, really, because across the board, no matter what you're dealing with, I mean, this is a podcast about motherhood, but guess what? You're going to fail in mothering. That doesn't mean that you don't try to mother your child. And that translates to so many other, probably every other area of life. I'm so glad you touched on that. I used to lead those paint and sip parties, you know, where someone comes in and leads a painting. So I used to lead those parties, and there were always people who were like, oh, mine doesn't look like yours. And I'm like, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
It's supposed to look like you painted it, not like I painted it. And I'm up here reading a step-by-step instruction on how to do this. I'm not an artist. Like, that's a little trade secret for you. I had a step-by-step instruction sheet in front of me. It wasn't because I was good at painting. It was because I love to be the center of attention. That's why I signed up.
Yes. You're like, ma'am, you have this twisted.
Yeah, but it was so much fun. And that was my favorite part of doing it, taking the group photo at the end, and every single picture was different.
Yeah. I feel like, we need to be okay with failing and okay with messing up and
or even just being different.
Yeah. And emotionally dealing with it in a healthier manner than just doom and gloom.
Which is also, that has to be a perk of baking all the time and hyperfixating on baking, because you get to eat your feelings sometimes. Oh, I would guess.
All the time. All the time. There are definitely days where I'm like, I need a brownie and I'm going to go make it. Like, I know exactly the type of brownie. I want a brownie that's so rich I have to drink milk with it. And it has to be a certain temperature. And I want a scoop of ice cream. Like, you know, like those things where you're like, I just need this.
Mm-hmm.
And life will
be okay. We all have our own. We all have our own things. What are some of your favorite things to create in the kitchen? And are they different from what your husband and daughter prefer you make?
My husband and my daughter. My husband has given his palate to my daughter, and I call his palate a trash palate because his favorite flavors in the world are birthday cake, bubble gum, and cotton candy. Wow. And I'm just like, what? Like, he's the one that's sharing ice cream with her when we go out to go get ice cream. I'm not. I'm getting my own flavor. I'm not eating that with you.
Yeah.
I love making like chocolate chip cookies, or like different versions of chocolate chip cookies. I'm a brownie person. I like small bites because then I can kind of snack on it for a while. And they last longer than a cake, in my opinion. Yeah. But my husband loves like ice cream and cake and pies. But I find those to be like, they're so big. I'm like, I need it so that I could pick it up, go sit in bed and eat it. If I can't do that, I'm not making it that often.
Right. Is that why he prefers those things? Because those servings are generally larger?
Yeah. If he likes something, he's eaten a lot of it. Like, I have a recipe in my latest book, a tender coconut cream pie. He ate 3 pies within a span of 2 weeks.
3 pies? 3 whole pies.
3 whole pies.
Is he one of those just maddening people that has the metabolism of a tiger?
Yes. Everyone's like, oh my God, I'm surprised you're not bigger with your wife being a baker. And I'm like, yeah, me too. It's like unfair.
Yeah. So tell me about this latest partnership and pairing that you are a part of through the holidays.
Yeah. So I'm partnering with Challenge Butter, who has partnered with Cookies for Kids Cancer for the holiday season to help bring light to pediatric cancer. And the way they're doing that is they have an initiative called Challenge for a Cure. And the way that works is that they're hoping people will hold bake sales and make donations to Cookies for Kids Cancer. And on top of that, they're hoping that people will share photos of their cookies. And if you don't know what type of cookie to make, Challenge Butter has a new holiday packaging out that has a gorgeous stained glass snowflake cookie recipe on the inside. I promise you, it looks complicated. This is very easy to make.
Yeah, that looks like a high-end cookie right there.
Yes, but it's low effort, high payoff, which is
There you
ideal
go.
for any bake.
Yes.
But they're hoping you take pictures of your bakes and then share them on social media, tagging Challenge Butter and Cookies for Kids Cancer and using hashtag Challenge for a Cure in the hopes that 1, it will inspire and raise awareness amongst your friends and family about pediatric cancer. And 2, Challenge Butter is donating money for each post that's posted up to a certain amount. So it's an easy way to give back during the holidays. And this is something that's very close to my heart. I did cancer drug research when I first graduated from school for a few years. And then I've also had family members that were affected with pediatric cancer. So this is very near and dear to me. And if you're looking for something to do this season, take a picture of your cookies, tag Challenge Butter, tag Cookies for Kids, and use hashtag Challenge for a Cure. And know that you did one good thing at least during the holidays.
I love that idea and approach so much because I do think this time of year people are looking for a way to give back and not knowing where to start. Do I volunteer? If so, how or with whom or what? And what a way to, especially moms, get your kids in the kitchen.
Yeah.
You can pre-measure the ingredients even, but just doing it together. And then it benefits these children going through such an intense situation in their life. And I just love this approach so much. So thank you to you and to Challenge Butter. And we'll have links, of course, everything in the show notes. Speaking of links, I want to get back to how people can learn more about you and your cookbooks.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Milk and Cardamom, and you can find my website at milkandcardamom.com. It's where I share all my recipes and travel stories. Yeah, those are the 2 great places. And you can find my book. I gotta talk about the book. You can find my books on Amazon, Target, Barnes & Nobles, or check out your local bookstore. They might have it too.
Yeah, and those are also available from your website, correct?
Yes.
And if you could go back in time and tell yourself, like when you're in the kitchen with 15 other people, and tell yourself, one day this is going to be your livelihood. You're going to love this so much, and you're going to be impacting not only your daughter's life, your husband's life through it, but so many others. What would you tell yourself to encourage yourself, motivate? What would you say?
I would tell myself, 1, you're going to miss this because I'm in the kitchen most days by myself. I am not with a gang of 15 aunties prepping dinner. The other is cut yourself some slack when you're older, in the sense that I'm not going to be able to make the same meals that a gang of 15 aunties did, right? You're going to have to make shortcuts and choose shortcuts and be okay with it.
I just love how you call them a gang. I might adopt that, actually.
And then I would say, just for my own sanity, teach them how to use measuring cups and measuring spoons. Because if you teach them while they're young, maybe they'll adapt it. But now it's like impossible. I have to like force my mom. Like trying to get a recipe from her is impossible. She's like, use 1 cup of rice, and the cup is like the teacup she drinks out of. And I'm like, Mom, that doesn't work. I don't have that same cup. A spoon is like the spoon that you eat with. Like she's just like the little spoon and the big spoon. I'm like, Ma, that doesn't, no, that's not how it works.
So do you, when you try to document those recipes, are you right beside her and like, okay, wait, and trying to measure and see, are you in it enough now where you can gauge, like, that looks like about maybe half a cup or something?
Yeah, I can gauge the teaspoons and tablespoons, but what I do now is I will set her bowl on a scale, and then as she adds something new, I tear the scale. So then I have the weight. So before she adds the next, she knows she has to wait before I press the button. So she's not just tossing everything in. And then I can eyeball the teaspoons, because what she does, even if I give her a teaspoon, she'll like overfill it. So it's like a mounded tablespoon. And I'm like, well,
Right.
That defeats the purpose, Mom. So now I've learned to eyeball that kind of stuff. The other thing is with savory cooking, it's okay to eyeball a little bit. When you're baking, that is not an option.
Can you talk about the difference between cooking and baking a little bit? Because I do think that, like me, not taking a home ec class until 7th grade and really not, because my mom hates to cook. And so she wasn't in the kitchen doing this. And I just assumed that everything was too hard. And then I was like, okay, when you cook, it says this, and I'm not going to stray for this, versus when you bake. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So the major difference with, I think, cooking and baking that I see is the fact that, like, as you're cooking, you can add additional spices or seasonings or whatever it may be. You can't really do that with baking. You have to wait until it's all done and you realize you messed up and start all over again. For the most part, like sometimes you just, like, you could try, like, I would say savory cooking, you can at least try and save it. With baking, there's a chance that if you did something wrong in the beginning, it's all done. And you have nothing else to do other than start over. The other is baking is it's very much about the ratios, right? The ratio of liquid to dry ingredients, the fat to flour, all that stuff matters. If you add, like, when you measure with the volume, like a cup, you can be like 20 to 30% off. You can have 20% more or less flour each time that you use them, because you could pack down the flour too tightly or not pack it at all, and it's super loose, and you'll have different amounts of flour. And what happens is then people are like, well, why didn't my cookies flatten out? Well, you had too much flour. Or why did my cookies get greasy? Probably melted butter instead of using softened butter. So when something goes wrong, I would say using a scale will help fix 90% of baking errors, because then at least your ratios are correct. That means the final texture will be right. And then as long as you're following the method, like if it says mix it for 3 minutes, mix it for 3 minutes. Don't just mix it and say, it looks good, and then move on. It means mix it for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
If it says softened butter, you soften butter. Don't melt it in the microwave and say that works, because there's a reason why you need softened butter over melted butter. So there are different, like, the rules that matter. With cooking, you could play around a little bit more, there's a little bit more freedom in the ratios. Like, you're going to cook meat, it's going to sear regardless, as long as it's thawed properly. You know what I mean? It's going to sear whether it's in the oven or on the stove. So there's a little bit more freedom. And then the ratios are entirely up to you. If you like things to be spicier, add more red chili pepper. If you don't like it spicy, don't add it. I always crack up when I see comments on recipes where they're like, what do I do if I don't like beans? And I'm like, don't use them. Right?
That's okay. Now this is my kind of snark language coming out here. But when I am looking for a recipe online and people can rate the recipe, and someone will like give it a 3-star review because they used this ingredient instead of this ingredient from the recipe. Are you kidding me?
It's not the same thing. I hate when people are like, oh, can I substitute the sugar with honey and the flour with almond flour? And I'm like, no. You can't. You're not going to get what you're looking for. It changes everything completely.
Yes.
You should look for a recipe specifically made for honey and almond flour.
And then they're so disappointed when it turns out differently and they substituted everything.
They give it a low rating. And I'm like, well, what did you expect?
I can't read the comments anymore. I still do. Of course. I still find myself browsing these comments and going like, what did you think was going to happen?
Yeah. Or I remember reading like a soup recipe where it's like 15 cloves of garlic in it or something. And someone's like, what if I don't like garlic? And someone underneath was like, don't make it.
This is how we simplify. This is, overthinking. It all goes back to probably every single one of us has undiagnosed ADHD.
Yeah.
This looks amazing, but I don't like half of it, but I really want to make it work. Oh, wow. Well, this has been so much fun, and I thank you so much. You want to do another shout out for how people can find you and the challenge one more time?
Yes. So you can find me at Milk and Cardamom on Instagram. And then you can be a part of the Challenge for a Cure initiative by tagging Challenge Butter and Cookies for Kids Cancer and using hashtag Challenge for a Cure on any of your beautiful cookie photos on social media. And you can also learn more about how you can hold a bake sale and learn more information about that at challengebutter.com or cookiesforkids.org.
Wonderful. This has been a blast. I just want to express my sincere thanks for you being a guest on the Motherhood Experience podcast. I'd encourage all of the listeners to find your website, find you on social media and all of the things, and have a happy holiday season.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Motherhood Experience podcast. To join our exclusive TME community, head over to themotherhoodexperience.com/learn more. Be sure to follow the Motherhood Experience on Instagram, and please leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment below, and we'll catch you next time.